Hey guys, it's Phil here, Doctor of Physical Therapy. I've been really getting into pickleball lately, and as a physical therapist, I've been naturally noticing some of the more common injuries that are happening out there on the courts. One of the most common injuries being tennis elbow. Without further ado, today I want to talk about what is tennis elbow, how do you prevent it, and how do you manage it. So you've probably heard of the term tennis elbow, but what exactly is it? Tennis elbow is also known as lateral epicondylitis. It is a repetitive stress injury to your lateral aspect of your elbow. Oftentimes people may experience pain or achiness at this outer elbow area, especially with things like tennis, pickleball, hammering, too much twisting. So any type of repetitive arm movement over time may trigger some inflammation and achiness in this area. So basically it happens because these tendons and these muscles right here are overworked. So it happens when you're doing more than what your body is currently able to handle. This area right here may be tender to touch when you kind of press down on it. You may have difficulty lifting your wrist up like this because basically all of these muscles connect down to your hand and it controls what happens at the wrist. So if these muscles are inflamed, it will affect what you can do at your wrist. You might also have pain with this motion called supination, which just means turning the hand over because it also engages some of the muscles in this spot. Especially in racket sports with things like tennis, pickleball, racquetball, squash, anything that requires a lot of swinging, what happens is you're just using that wrist over and over again. So every time your paddle hits the ball, these muscles are working really hard to stabilize your wrist and create that power. So now that we know what tennis elbow is, we have to talk about how do you prevent it and how do you manage it. Honestly, prevention and management go hand in hand, and I'll explain. First thing, we have to look at load management. What does that mean? The injury occurs because of an overloading issue, which means your muscles are overworked. So naturally, what we have to look at is how much you're loading the muscle. For example, if you don't have a background in racket sports or going to the gym doing heavy pulling motions or like a lifting background, you're not a climber, naturally your forearm muscles are probably not as developed as somebody with a background in tennis. If you go from zero experience in any kind of racket sports to playing pickleball 6 hours a day, that's a big jump. And that may put you more at risk for developing tennis elbow, right? It makes sense. So to prevent tennis elbow from developing, you want to make sure that you're not overexerting yourself. Maybe playing every other day to start out instead of playing every day. Or maybe limit the hours or take breaks between games so you're not going back to back. All that is to say, listen to your body. And if you're actively dealing with some tennis elbow issues, it's even more important to manage your loads. So you want to ease into your sporting activities so you don't overly aggravate the injured area. Next, muscle strengthening. Because tennis elbow is caused by overworked muscle tendons, a good way to prevent tennis elbow from developing is to strengthen these muscles. Building stronger muscles allow you to become more resilient to the forces of swinging a paddle over and over again. So here are some movements that you can do to help strengthen this whole region. So I've got an exercise band here. I'm going to drop it down. I'm going to step on it. Right, so I have my foot on the band right here. And what you're going to do is you're going to hold on to the band, keep your shoulder and elbow in place, and you're going to just lift up. So you see my whole shoulder area is relaxed and I'm just moving the wrist up and down. You're going to do about 3 sets of 10 to 15 of these. Next you can do the other way and you can strengthen the bottom portion of your elbow. Same thing, 3 sets of 10 to 15, nice and easy. And you can also add in supination or pronation, which just means turning your hand over. So same exact band, I'm going to hold it like so. So I have the band kind of wrapping around my thumb area, you see? So I'm gonna start with my palm facing up and then I'm gonna turn my hand over. So this is called pronation, which just means I'm turning my hand down and in. Same thing, 3 sets of 10 to 15. And next we got supination. So I'm going to hold on to the band again, but this time I'm going to grab like this. So my thumb down, I'm gonna grab onto the band and I'm gonna turn up. So same thing, shoulder, elbow in place, and I'm just turning my wrist. So you should feel it all over in the inside elbow area. Next, if you have some dumbbells laying around, a good way to strengthen this whole elbow area are curls. So I like to do some hammer curls. So a strong wrist, right? I'm not flopping my wrist around, and I am curling the dumbbells to my chest area. Again, 3 sets of 10 to 15. And then you can also add in some traditional bicep curls. So now my palms are facing forward and I am bringing the dumbbells to the front of my shoulders. Again, don't let your wrist flop around. Strong grip on the dumbbells, just like that. So keep in mind that these exercise guidelines are for somebody without active tennis elbow. If you're dealing with actual tennis elbow and pain in this area, you really have to dial in the numbers more. And really, it's hard to give a blanket recommendation for everybody. Next, we have to talk about recovery, right? So after an intense game of pickleball, you might feel some arm fatigue. So it's important to cool down and wind down on muscles, because an overworked muscle can feel tight, and that can potentially lead to more inflammation down the line. So if your muscles are feeling fatigued or tight after a long day of playing, so a good stretch for this is a wrist flexion stretch. So basically I am straightening my elbow and I'm pulling my hand down, and you should feel a nice gentle stretch at the top of my elbow right here. So you just want to hold it for around 20 to 30 seconds. And then you can do the opposite. So I'm pulling my hand up now towards myself. Now you're going to stretch out the bottom portion of your elbow area. Again, hold it for 20 to 30 seconds. And you can do that 2 or 3 times after an intense day of pickleball. After stretching, you can also do some self-massage through this area. If you have a Theragun or anything like that, you can go ahead and just kind of work through these muscles, especially if they're feeling tight. If not, you can also just like use your hand, hold down this muscle. So I'm just pressing down and I'm just kind of moving my hand up and down. This is a good way just to kind of get in there to relax those muscles. Just like that. And I would be careful with this one if you're dealing with active tennis elbow, because it can be painful and achy, and you don't want to overly stress a tendon that's already inflamed. So basically, if you have a bruise, you don't want to keep pressing on it. So next, I wanted to talk about paddles. So some paddles are naturally lighter than others. Some paddles are heavier. Some paddles are more head heavy than others. Paddles are highly subjective, and I'm not going to pretend like I've tried all the paddles out there, but pay attention to how you feel after a session, right? So you don't want to feel that arm fatigue after. You don't want to feel like, ooh, this is heavy to move around. If that's the case, you might want to experiment with something lighter, something less head heavy. The key here is just to experiment and find something that works better for you. And lastly, just make sure you're warmed up for pickleball. Honestly, on the courts, when I'm playing in my local parks, I see a lot of these players just stroll up and start hitting the ball right away. So all those exercises that I talked about with the bands, they're a great way to kind of bring some blood flow to the area. If you're looking more for a full body dynamic warm-up, I also have a video of that on my channel. So I hope you guys learned something new from this video, and take care.